Evan Cole had spent most of his life fixing machines, not feelings. As one of the few humans assigned to the Valkyrie research station, orbiting a dying blue star, he already felt like an outsider. The Valkyrie were tall, silver-skinned beings who valued logic over emotion. They spoke in calm tones, always measured, always distant. Evan tried to fit in, but he could feel their eyes on him, cold and calculating, as if they were studying a strange creature that did not belong. That day, the base's shield generator failed for the third time. Sparks burst across the metallic chamber, alarms blaring, the hum of the failing reactor shaking the walls. Evan rushed to repair it. His hands worked fast, tools clinking against steel. Sweat rolled down his face. Around him, the Valkyrie scientists stood in silence, their expressions unreadable. Then she walked in, Commander Virella. Her armor shimmered under the white lights, and her piercing violet eyes locked onto him. She was known across the fleet for her sharp mind and colder heart. She never smiled, never hesitated. Her voice carried authority that silenced entire rooms. "What is the delay, human?" she said, her tone cutting through the noise. Evan tried to explain, showing the damaged circuits and corroded wires. "It's not responding to the backup relay," he said. "The energy output from the core is unstable. If I rewire it wrong, it could blow." Her jaw tightened. "So fix it correctly." "I'm trying." "Pathetic human," she said softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. The words hit harder than any explosion. The Valkyrie behind her did not laugh, but their still faces said everything. To them, humans were emotional, clumsy, weak. Virella turned her back on him and left the room without another word. Evan stood frozen, his chest heavy. He finished the repair in silence. The hum of the generator returned, stable and strong, but it no longer mattered. He had done his job, yet felt defeated. That night, the station grew quiet. Only the faint vibrations of the engines echoed through the halls. Evan sat alone in his quarters, replaying her voice in his head, pathetic human. He wanted to forget it, but the insult clung to his mind like static. Around 3 a.m., the lights flickered. The hum of the air vent stopped for a second. He frowned and looked up. Something about the silence felt wrong. He stood, glancing toward the door, still sealed shut. Then a soft metallic whisper brushed against his ear. He turned sharply. No one. His monitor glowed faintly, showing static. The clock blinked, 03 bars, and then froze. Evan rubbed his eyes, thinking it was fatigue. But when he sat back down, he felt it. The air around him grew colder. The faint scent of ozone filled the room, the same smell that came from Valkyrie energy fields. He turned again and froze. On his bed near the corner, there was a faint glowing trace. Blue dust, alien residue. Valkyrie armor always left that kind of shimmer when charged. He touched it, and it dissolved instantly, fading like mist. "Computer," he whispered. "Run security scan." The AI responded calmly. No unauthorized entry detected. He frowned. That was impossible. Someone or something had been here. The next morning, he went to the main lab. Virella stood there, her usual composed self. When she looked at him, her gaze lingered for a second longer than usual. "You repaired the generator," she said flatly. "Yes," Evan replied, keeping his tone professional. "Acceptable," she said, and walked away. But as she turned, for just a heartbeat, he saw her hesitate. Her hand brushed the side of her arm, right where her insignia crystal usually hung. It was gone. That night, Evan checked his quarters again. He scanned every inch, nothing. He told himself he was imagining it. The Valkyrie would never step inside his room, let alone the commander who despised him. But at 3 a.m., the lights flickered again. This time he stayed awake, pretending to sleep. The air cooled once more, and that faint electric hum filled the space. His breath slowed as shadows moved across the wall. He saw it, a tall silhouette, graceful, familiar. Virella. Her form glowed faintly as if she was half there, half energy. She stood near his bed, silent, watching him. Her expression wasn't the same as before. It was softer, almost conflicted. She reached out, then stopped, her hand trembling in the air. Evan's heart pounded. He wanted to move, but his body refused. He watched her step closer, and then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she vanished. The lights returned to normal. The clock blinked again, 03:01. When he sat up, his bed was cold where she had stood. On the pillow, a faint shimmer of alien dust glowed and disappeared. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. But when she passed him in the corridor, she glanced his way again, just once, and her eyes flickered with something he could not name. That night, Evan could not sleep. His mind was racing. The insult no longer haunted him. Something else did. Why had the woman who called him pathetic human appeared in his room at exactly 3 a.m.? And why did it feel like she was protecting him from something even he could not see? He did not know it yet, but the line between hatred and something far more dangerous had already begun to blur. The next night, Evan Cole could not focus on his work. Every sound on the Valkyrie station felt louder than usual. The metallic hum of doors sliding open, the soft pulse of engines beneath the floor, the distant murmur of voices. He kept glancing at the clock on his wrist, counting down the hours to 3 a.m. He told himself it was a dream, a trick of his exhausted mind, but deep down, he knew what he had seen. The glow, the shape, the trembling shadow that had looked at him like it knew his name, that was real. He decided to test it. Before going to sleep, he placed a small camera in the corner of his room. The lens shimmered faintly as it began recording. He also set his datapad to scan for energy fluctuations. If Varela or anything like her came again, he would have proof. By midnight, the lights dimmed across the base. The night shift crew whispered through comms. Most Valkyrie did not need sleep, but humans did. Evan lay in bed, pretending to rest, his mind alive with questions. Why would she come? Why at 3 a.m.? Why leave traces of her energy in his room? At 02:58, the air started to hum. His monitor glitched for a second, static flickering across the screen. He looked toward the corner camera. Its small light flicked off. The datapad beside him blinked red and died. Then came the silence. The air turned colder again, sharp enough to make him shiver. The sound of slow, measured footsteps echoed softly against the metal floor. He felt the faint tremor of the floor panels beneath each step. He forced himself to breathe quietly and kept his eyes half closed. The presence stopped beside him. He could sense it, tall, calm, but filled with tension. A faint light pulsed across the room, blue and silver. He saw her outline through his eyelashes. Commander Varela stood at his bedside again. She watched him sleep. Her face was calm, but her eyes glowed faintly violet in the dim light. She looked at his hands, then at his chest as if checking something. Not desire, not anger, something else. Concern. Evan felt his heart race, but he did not move. Then she did something that froze him entirely. She reached out, her fingers brushing the air above him, and whispered a word in her language, something he could barely hear. When she spoke, her tone trembled. The room flickered. For a second, it felt as if the space itself bent around her. Then the light vanished and she was gone. Evan sat up immediately, gasping for air. The camera was still dead. His datapad, however, had one flicker of data, a spike of unknown energy at exactly 03:02. He stared at it for a long time. The next morning, when he entered the command deck, Varela was standing by the window overlooking the stars. She looked as perfect and composed as ever. When she turned toward him, her expression remained unreadable. "Your report on the energy output?" she asked. He handed it over, but she did not take it right away. Her fingers hovered above the datapad for a moment longer than necessary. He noticed her pulse, faint blue light beneath her skin, flickering faster than usual. Their eyes met. For just a second, the strong commander looked almost human. Then she withdrew her hand and turned away. Later that day, Evan checked the camera feed. Every file after 2:59 a.m. was corrupted. The system log showed no errors, just blank static. But there was something new. Under his pillow, he found a small crystalline shard. It shimmered in soft purple tones, the same as the crystals Valkyrie officers wore on their chest, Varela's insignia. He held it tightly in his hand, unsure what to think. Was it an accident? A sign? A warning? He had no idea. But he knew she had been in his room again. And he knew she was hiding something. That night, he stayed awake again. The station lights flickered at the usual hour. The hum returned, but this time he sat up. "Commander," he said softly into the darkness. "If you're there, just tell me why." For a moment, there was nothing. Then from the far corner of the room came a whisper, low and trembling. "Sleep." The word echoed in his mind rather than his ears. It wasn't just sound. It was thought. It was inside him. He clutched his head, the pressure strong but not painful. His eyes grew heavy. The room blurred, and before he realized it, he had fallen asleep. When he awoke, morning light filtered through the thin glass of the viewport. He felt drained but calm. On his wrist, a new mark glowed faintly blue, a shape like a circle crossed by two lines. Valkyrie symbols. He stared at it in disbelief. Later, when he saw Varela in the main hall, she looked at his wrist and froze. For the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. She turned sharply, her voice tight. "Do not speak of this. Do not ask, forget." "But you forget," she snapped and walked away, her shoulders tense. The other Valkyrie looked at him curiously but said nothing. They did not dare question their commander. That night, Evan sat again in the dark, staring at the mark on his skin. It pulsed faintly with every beat of his heart. He thought of her voice, her eyes, the fear she tried to hide. Whatever was happening between them was no longer just strange. It was dangerous. And as the clock turned to 3 a.m., he heard it again. The faint whisper of a door that never opened, and a voice that should not have known his name. "Evan." He froze. This time the voice was filled not with command, but something fragile, something almost like longing. The lights flickered. The air trembled. She was back. Evan Cole spent the next few days trapped between confusion and obsession. He barely slept, ate little, and avoided the common decks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. The proud alien commander who had once called him pathetic human, now standing silently at his bedside in the middle of the night. He needed to know the truth. He began searching the station archives quietly and carefully. The Valkyrie were secretive, especially about their rituals and mental abilities. He had to be cautious. One wrong move and he could be removed from the station entirely. Using an old human interface port, he bypassed the locked entries and accessed the translation files. His eyes widened as he read through the ancient text, the one describing a phenomenon called Scifi, the bond of shared consciousness. It spoke of a psychic link formed only in times of extreme emotional conflict. Two minds, locked together by accident or will, could drift into one another's dreams. The bond was forbidden between species. The risks were too high. One mind could consume the other, their emotions blending until neither remained the same. Evan sat back, his heart pounding. The symptoms matched everything that had happened. The dreams, the whispers, the energy residue, the mark on his wrist. He was caught inside something far beyond his understanding. But what terrified him most wasn't that she was connecting with him. It was that maybe she didn't mean to. Later that day, he saw her again. Commander Varela stood near the observation deck alone. The blue light of the dying star illuminated her face, making her look carved from crystal. Evan hesitated before approaching. "Commander," he said quietly. Her body stiffened. "You should not be here, human." He stepped closer. "You've been coming to my room." Her jaw tightened. "You imagine things. Go back to your station." "I found your insignia crystal," he said, "under my pillow." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut air. She turned to face him fully. For the first time, he saw cracks in her control. Her eyes, usually cold and precise, trembled. "You were never meant to know," she whispered. "What is happening to me?" Varela looked away. A Valkyrie should not touch the mind of another species. "It is forbidden, dangerous. Then why?" "It was not choice," she interrupted. "When you repaired the generator, the energy surge tore through my neural shield. I reached into your thoughts to survive the overload. I did not mean to. But the bond formed. It grows stronger every cycle at O3 Auser, when your human brain enters its dream state." Evan took a step back. "You're inside my head," her voice softened. "And you inside mine." She looked almost ashamed. "I tried to sever it. Every night I come to weaken the connection, not feed it. But the bond resists it, calls me." He felt a strange pull in his chest, like invisible threads tightening. "That's why you look at me like that," he said quietly. Her gaze flickered to him. "It is not affection," she said quickly. "It is survival. The bond links emotion to energy. If one feels too much, both suffer." He nodded slowly, trying to hide his trembling hands. "Then what happens if it continues?" Her answer came like a knife. "One of us disappears." She turned sharply and walked away before he could say another word. That night, Evan couldn't stop thinking about her. Every heartbeat seemed to echo her name. The bond wasn't just in dreams anymore, it was creeping into his waking mind. He could feel flashes of her emotions, tension, guilt, exhaustion, and something else buried deep beneath. Something warm. At exactly 3 a.m., he woke up gasping. The air shimmered again, but this time it wasn't cold. It felt alive. Virella appeared in front of him, not as a solid body, but as a projection of light and thought. Her armor glowed faintly, her eyes softer than before. "You must let me end it," she said. Her voice trembled. "How?" "By breaking the link at the source. The neural pattern between our dreams. I will erase your memory of me. It is the only way." He stared at her. "And if you fail?" "Then both our minds collapse," she said calmly. "You die. I forget." The way she said it made him realize she wasn't as emotionless as she wanted him to believe. There was fear in her tone. She stepped closer, her light flickering against his skin. "Do not look at me like that, human," she said softly. "You are not meant to feel this." He smiled faintly. "Then stop coming at 3 a.m. Something broke in her expression, a tiny crack of emotion she could no longer hide. "I have tried," she whispered. "Every night I swear I will not return. Yet the bond drags me here." "Then maybe," he said quietly, "you don't really want to stop." She turned away quickly. "You speak of things you cannot understand." Before he could respond, the room shook. The alarm screamed through the station, an incoming meteor storm. She vanished instantly, her form dissolving into static light. Evan rushed to his window and saw fragments of rock burning across the thin energy field of the base. The shields held for now, but the outer decks were taking hits. The same deck where the power conduits ran. The same place that had first connected their minds. He stared at the storm, his heart racing. He knew she would come again tonight. Not to watch, not to whisper, but to protect. And this time, something told him that whatever bound them together had just begun to wake up. The storm came without warning. The base trembled as meteors struck its outer hull, each impact echoing like thunder through the steel corridors. Lights flickered and alarms screamed in every direction. Evan Cole sprinted through the shaking hallways, gripping the wall rails to keep his balance. Emergency shutters slammed down behind him one by one, sealing off sections of the research station. "Warning," the station AI repeated in a calm female voice. "Hull breach on decks 5 and 6. Evacuate immediately." He wasn't on either deck, but he knew what that meant. The shield generators were failing again. The same ones that had tied his fate to hers. He ran to the maintenance bay. The energy core pulsed violently, blue arcs flashing across the metal. The whole chamber looked alive, like lightning trapped in a cage. Evan pulled off the access panel, his fingers trembling. He could fix this if he was fast enough, but deep down he knew he wasn't alone. He felt her before he saw her. "Virella," he said without turning. Her voice came from behind him, sharper than the alarms. "You should not be here," he faced her. Her silver armor shimmered under the flickering light, her violet eyes glowing brighter than usual. She looked fierce, but her composure was cracking. "The energy field is unstable," he said. "If it blows, the entire base goes with it." "I am aware," she replied coldly, stepping closer. "But you are in danger." "Leave, human," Evan shook his head. "Not until I fix it." "You do not understand," she snapped. "This surge is not natural. It is feeding on us, on the bond." Her words froze him. "Feeding on us?" Virella clenched her jaw. "You were not supposed to know. The storm is not just debris. Something came with it. A sentient force. It moves through psychic links, dreams, emotions, minds." He remembered the nights she appeared in his room, the whispers, the flickering lights. "That's why you came," he said slowly. "You were protecting me." She didn't answer, but the silence spoke enough. Evan swallowed hard. "Then why not tell me?" Her voice lowered. "Because to name it is to call it closer. The Valkyrie have fought this presence before. We call it the umbral veil. It consumes consciousness. It hunts those who dream too deeply." He felt his skin crawl. "And because of this bond, it found us." Virella nodded once. "At 3 a.m., when your mind enters its most open state, it reaches through me, to you. That is why I stand guard every night." Evan stared at her, the truth washing over him. The woman who had called him pathetic was the same one who had been silently protecting him for days, risking her sanity to keep him alive. "What happens if the bond breaks while it's inside us?" he asked, her eyes dimmed. "Then it takes both of us." A deep rumble tore through the floor. The core flared violently, arcs of blue lightning whipping through the chamber. Evan ducked, shielding his face. Varella's armor absorbed the blast, but she fell to one knee. He rushed to her side. "You can't keep doing this alone," he said. She grabbed his wrist, her hand trembling. "If I lose control, it will enter you. You must leave now." He looked into her eyes, the fear hiding behind her authority. "No," he said firmly. "We face it together." Her lips parted in disbelief. "You are reckless, maybe," he said with a faint smile. "But I'm not leaving you." The core began to spin faster, a deep hum shaking the air. The lights dimmed to red. Energy fields collapsed one by one. And then, the shadows changed. They moved. Something dark poured out of the generator, not smoke, not matter, but a shape made of pure absence. Its tendrils spread across the walls like liquid night. It hissed without sound, a vibration that pressed against their skulls. Evan stumbled back. His vision blurred. Whispers filled his head, his own fears, his own regrets. He saw flashes of memories that weren't his. A Valkyrie city burning, Varela screaming under a collapsing sky, a shadow consuming everything. The voice in his mind spoke. "We are many. We are hunger. We come where hearts are open." Varela stepped forward, raising her hand. Her violet eyes glowed like twin stars. "You will not take him," she shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. She pushed her energy forward, creating a glowing shield that surrounded Evan. The creature struck it again and again, shaking the barrier. Sweat rolled down her neck as her strength faltered. Evan pressed his hand against hers through the field. "Let me help." She shook her head weakly. "You cannot." "Oh, yes, I can," he said. "You said we're connected." "Then use it." For a second, she hesitated. Then she took his hand. The bond ignited. Light flooded the room, silver and blue threads weaving between them, pulsing with shared energy. The creature screamed, its form twisting violently. Varela and Evan stood side by side, their minds overlapping, their emotions merging into one unstoppable surge. He felt her fear, her pain, her centuries of loneliness. She felt his courage, his defiance, his human warmth. The mix of them both became something new, something powerful enough to burn through the dark. The shadow shrieked and recoiled, retreating back into the shattered core before vanishing completely. The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm itself. The hum of the bass steadied. The lights flickered back to white. Varela collapsed into his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her skin dimming from silver to pale gray. Evan knelt beside her, holding her tightly. "Stay with me," he said quietly. She opened her eyes weakly. "I told you to run, and I told you I wouldn't." A faint smile crossed her lips, and the first he had ever seen. "Pathetic human," she whispered softly, but this time, her voice was filled with something close to affection. Then her eyes closed, and her body went still. Evan held her tighter as the station drifted in silence. The stars beyond glowing like cold witnesses. The clock on the wall flickered. Oro 3 duers, and for the first time he felt truly alone. The station floated in silence after the storm. The corridors were dark and half flooded with the smell of burnt circuits. Only the hum of the engines remained, a lonely sound in the emptiness of space. Evan Cole sat beside the medical stasis pod, watching the faint blue glow of the life field that surrounded Commander Varela. Her pulse was slow but steady. The doctors had said she might never wake up. Her neural activity was unstable, locked between consciousness and the psychic realm she had used to fight the umbral veil. Evan refused to leave her side. Days passed. He barely spoke to the others, and they avoided him anyway. The Valkyrie crew whispered when he walked by. Some said the human had cursed their commander. Others claimed he had bonded with her in ways forbidden by their laws. No one dared confront him. He had looked into something they feared. On the 7th night, the lights in the medbay dimmed to emergency power. Evan stared at her still form. Silver skin pale, her armor cracked, her violet eyes closed as if frozen in a dream. He placed his hand against the stasis glass. "You saved me," he whispered. "Now it's my turn." The clock beside the bed flickered to life. So 2:59, he frowned. The power grid had been offline for hours. Then, as if something answered his thought, the number changed. 03 was the air in the room turned cold. The light around Varela shimmered. A faint pulse of energy rippled through the pod, making the machine stutter. Evan stood, his chest tightening. He felt that familiar sensation again. The pull in his mind, the whisper in his bones. "Evan." The voice was soft but clear. Not from the speakers, not from the corridor, inside his head. He stepped back, heart racing. Virella? The stasis field flickered, and suddenly she was there. Not her body, but her glowing figure, translucent and surrounded by light. Her eyes were open now, bright with the same violet fire he had seen before. "You should not have stayed," she said, her voice echoing between thought and air. "The bond is complete," he couldn't look away. "You said if the bond completed, one of us would disappear." Her expression softened. "I was wrong. The bond changes us both. You carry part of me now." He touched his chest instinctively and his heart pounded harder. "Then what happens to you?" "I am between worlds," she said. "Half here, half within the veil. I can feel everything you feel. Your breath, your heartbeat, your fear." He took a shaky breath. "Then tell me how to bring you back." Virella shook her head. "You cannot. The Valkyrie Council will erase the connection once they learn the truth. They will destroy the evidence of this bond. They fear what they do not understand." He moved closer. "Let them try." Her image flickered, but her eyes held his. "You do not understand what we have done, human. You touched something no other species was meant to. We crossed the boundaries of thought, of life. You should have died that night." "I almost did," he said quietly. "But I wasn't the only one who fought. You did too." She looked at him for a long moment. There was a faint trembling in her light, as if emotion itself bent the air around her. "You still do not see. When the bond began, I pitied you. I thought of you as fragile, slow, soft. But when the storm came, you refused to run. You stayed, even when it meant death. You fought the darkness beside me." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "No Valkyrie would have done that." He smiled faintly. "Maybe you needed something pathetic to remind you what courage looks like." For the first time, she laughed. It was soft, distant, and beautiful. "You are impossible," she said. "Then stop visiting me every night," he replied. The smile faded. "I cannot. The bond calls me. At this hour our minds are most open. That is why I appear." He looked at her carefully. "Then maybe it's not the bond that calls you. Maybe it's you." Her image flickered again. She looked away, her tone almost pleading. "Do not make this harder than it already is." Evan took another step forward. "You risked your life to protect me from something you didn't even believe in. You crossed your own laws, and now you tell me you feel everything I do. So tell me this, Virella. When you stand here every night at 3 a.m., what do you feel?" She froze. The light around her shimmered as her composure broke. "I feel warmth, noise, the pulse of a heart that never surrenders. I feel alive. And it terrifies me." He reached toward her. "Then stop being afraid." For a moment she hesitated. Then her glowing hand moved forward and met his. The air cracked with energy. The room filled with light as their fingers touched through the thin barrier of space and thought. His skin burned, but it wasn't pain, it was connection. He felt her mind completely now. Her memories rushed into him like waves. The destruction of her homeworld, her loneliness as commander, her constant struggle to hide weakness from her people. And beneath it all, one truth pulsed quietly. She had come to him not just out of duty, but because, somehow in all her centuries of command, he was the only one who made her feel something she could not name. The lights dimmed again. Her form began to fade. "Will I ever see you again?" he asked, his voice trembling. She looked at him one last time. "Every 3 a.m., human. Even if you cannot see me, I will be there." And then she vanished. The room fell silent once more. The clock blinked 03:01. Evan stood there, heart still racing, the faint warmth of her touch lingering in his palm. Outside, the stars drifted quietly through the void, cold and endless. Yet for the first time since arriving on the Valkyrie station, he did not feel alone. He looked at the sleeping body in the stasis pod, then at the stars beyond the glass. Maybe the universe was colder than he had imagined, but at 3 a.m. each night it still remembered how to feel.